Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Google Pixel 3 and see how this particular phone holds up in 2024. Now, the thing I would definitely tell you about the Pixel 3 is that it's an interesting phone. I probably wouldn't recommend anyone to buy it anymore and or use it, but I still think it's kind of like a usable phone for the most part. But there's actually some big reasons why people even want to consider purchasing this device in this particular year. And there is one big reason why although I wouldn't recommend anyone using this phone, there's a big reason why I'd recommend people to buy this phone, which is actually pretty crazy. So first of all, if you want to pick up some phones that I would recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description. Get them from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the outside of the Pixel 3, you can see that on the front, we do have a 5.5-inch OLED display. It's 1080p, and it was a pretty good looking display when it first came out. And this is the problem, I would say, with the 2018 phones. There were lots of phone manufacturers that were doing lots of weird things. And the Pixel 3 XL was one of those, phones with a massive notch. Definitely did not look that great. And that phone had its own plethora amount of issues that were just weird and just crazy all around the board. With the Pixel 3, I think this was a good approach from Google. I think it was a good successor from the Pixel 2. And with its display, it was actually pretty decent. You're getting the top bezel and the bottom bezel, but you were getting a little bit of a speaker on the bottom of the phone, which I actually liked a lot. It reminded me a lot of the Nexus 5X that came out before this phone, or like many generations before this phone. And with this one, still looks fairly good. I don't really have that much to complain about here with this particular device. And I think the display, the big thing that we don't have on this phone is like 90 Hz or 120 Hz, but a lot of 2018 phones weren't giving you that either, so it's not really that big of a deal. The sides of this phone was built out of this material. I mean, they say it was like aluminum. It doesn't really feel super that aluminum to me. You were also getting on the backside a little bit of like a glass back at the very top, and then like the aluminum on the rest, which was kind of interesting. On the bottom of this phone, you were getting the USB Type-C port, which is still perfectly fine. I liked USB-C a lot, and that was kind of it. There wasn't anything super crazy going on with this phone feature-wise on the outside. You were getting things like wireless charging and different things like that, but for the most part, it was a pretty basic type of device, and I think that was kind of one of the biggest features of this type of phone, was that it was just a minimalistic type of device, and you can buy it and not have too many big features on this phone that would age out like super fast. If you take a look at a phone like a Samsung Galaxy, what came out in 2018, the S9, those phones, they don't even look that bad either. A lot of 2018 phones still look very good. The iPhone XR, this phone, the Galaxy S9. So this phone year, I would say, a lot of these devices looked very, very good years and years later. Take a look at the original Pixel. That phone looked pretty old even when it first came out, and this one doesn't really look that bad. So on the exterior, I would still say it looks pretty good for the most part. But the one reason why I would probably recommend people to buy this phone is not even an exterior feature, it's anything like that. It's actually a software feature more so than not, and that is actually the unlimited Google Photo storage. So with the Pixel 3, if you buy this type of phone, you are actually going to be getting unlimited Google Photo storage for the duration of this phone's life. So as long as this phone still turns on, you can actually go ahead and upload as many photos and videos that you want to for unlimited quality on the Pixel 3 to the Pixel 5 actually. So that is a reason why I would recommend some people to actually buy this phone. So if you're spending a bunch of money on Google storage, it might just make more financial sense to buy a Pixel 3 and even have this thing as like a backup phone, transfer all your photos on your actual phone to this one, and then upload them to Google Photos. You can do that. And although it's going to be kind of annoying, you can find a way to kind of send them wirelessly to your Pixel. Then you can upload them directly from there. And that in and of itself is actually a pretty crazy thing that you have the option of doing on this particular device. So I would tell you from that particular perspective, it's actually a pretty crazy thing that you can actually do, and a reason, maybe the only reason I would recommend people to even buy this phone anymore. So from that perspective, that kind of covers it up there. Now in terms of the camera side, this particular phone is essentially giving you that single camera setup on the back. It was a 12.2 megapixel wide-angle lens, and on the front, it was a dual camera setup, which was pretty crazy, an 8 megapixel wide and then an 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera. This kind of stuff is actually pretty crazy on this particular phone, the fact that you were getting that type of experience on these types of devices. Now, I will tell you from the camera side, definitely okay, 4K at 30 on the back, 1080p at 30 on the front. Definitely not that great of a camera anymore. I think we all can kind of suspect that. These types of phones and these types of cameras just don't really age up that well, I would say, for the long duration of time, mostly because it is like a single camera setup. When you're getting these types of single camera setup phones, you are kind of getting a device that really isn't going to be holding up that well for a long period of time. You don't have that type of hardware you have on this phone that you have on something like a Pixel 6 Pro or a Pixel 8 Pro. So because of that, you're kind of stuck in the situation where it's not really worth buying anymore because it's kind of outdated with the hardware. Even if the software was great and there was tons of enhancements and stuff, you would still be getting kind of a lackluster device for the most part, just because the camera just really isn't that great. So take it as you will, but from my personal opinion, I definitely do think that the camera on this thing is one of those reasons why I wouldn't recommend people to buy this phone, and it definitely ages this phone a lot more than really most other devices out there. So from that particular perspective as well, that kind of covers it up there too. Now in terms of software and longevity, this is another interesting thing with this particular device as well. Now the thing with this, this particular device is that when you are getting the, Google Pixel 3, you are once again getting a phone that is a little bit outdated once again when it comes down to this kind of stuff. The software on this particular phone, although it's not super old, like this is still a phone that's still on Android 12, which really isn't that old. Android 12 definitely is not the oldest version of software. You are kind of getting a device that really just isn't that great when it comes down to that software experience because, it's just not really getting any more software updates anymore. Like I said, Android 12 is still perfectly fine for the most part, but you probably want to get a phone that still has a little bit more software updates ahead of it. And this phone really isn't going to be giving you that, which can be kind of an issue. You probably want to get a phone that is still going to be supported with software for a longer period of time. And unfortunately, these phones just really aren't going to be giving you that. So take that as you will, but that is probably going to be another thing that you kind of just have to keep in mind in the back of your head. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but that is just one slight thing to kind of keep in mind once again. Now, in terms of the actual performance of this phone is going to be giving you inside that Qualcomm Snapdragon 845 chipset with 4 gigabytes of RAM. Now, the thing I'll tell you about the RAM side and the performance side of this particular phone is that, like I said before, it's actually not a terrible performing device. I knew of some people who were still using this type of phone and they were still getting a pretty decent experience of this phone, on this device for a pretty long period of time. And I will still tell you with this particular device, it is still a pretty decent performing phone when it comes down to it. Again, it's not perfect by any means, but it's still a device that I look at, I'm still actually pretty happy with. The thing with this particular phone is that for a older type of 2018 phone that's 6 years old now, it is definitely good and it definitely is good enough, and I don't really once again have that much to complain about here. I think the only issue I have with this particular phone is that with the lacking on 90 or 120 hertz, things feel a lot kind of glitchier when kind of moving around, and it is a significantly older device, so you are going to be getting less RAM and an older chipset. But for basic things, it's probably okay. But again, because the software is a little bit older now too, once again, you probably want to get a phone that is still kind of supported and still sticking around for a little bit longer. So to kind of sum up this video, what I will definitely tell you, the Google Pixel 3 is by far one of the more interesting phones Google's made. It was a pretty good phone, it was pretty basic. But once again, you are probably going to be wanting to get a device that is pretty much still relevant and is still supported with software updates ahead of it. This device isn't really going to be giving you that. There's no software updates going ahead of this particular phone. So that is kind of the problem that you're kind of getting with this particular device, is that you're not really going to be getting software updates or anything like that. So just kind of keep that in mind. Once again, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but if you want to get the Google photo storage, then by all means go for it. Otherwise, I'd probably go for something like a Pixel 5 or a Pixel 6 and above. So that pretty much covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.